Dobry Tuborowski. I've been doing videos for 2 years now, and as you may know, I've always done one at this time in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And while I do believe it's a day we should honor in the glorious USA, in one respect, the exclusive focus on Dr. King and the civil rights movement of mid-20th century America dishonors the memory of those who came before, who fought and struggled and too often died to realize basic human dignity, let alone any American dream. Especially is this true if it involves the history of labor in the United States. The right of labor to organize, of working people to collectively associate for their civil, economic, and political benefit, like the Chamber of Commerce, has been a major struggle for democracy in American history, but you'd never know it by the mass media. There are countless books, films, videos, TV productions on the civil rights movement and its different phases and incidents. The Freedom Riders, the sit-ins, the bus boycott, the busing wars, marches in Selma and Birmingham. The mass media and social and political culture is insistent we remember those who fought for racial equality, and rightfully so. But in the fight for class equality, a nice veil is drawn over the struggles of labor by that same media, like a hostage in the Ayatollah's harem. The American establishment is quite willing to concede racial equality in theory, but draws a firm line of class equality because this cuts to the bone of American society in ways that racism does not. The wealthy white liberal could afford to make patronizing pronouncements on ending racism and advocate affirmative action and forced busing, and still does, because he knows that such policies cannot practically touch him at an operative level. These folks don't send their kids to public schools, use public transportation, compete with minorities in any but the most rarefied atmosphere. Most corporate liberals are dispensers of opportunities for others, not recipients of them from others. So upward mobility from lower to middle class, or the trajectory for most blacks in the USA, upsets few if any elite luncheons, where one never guesses at who comes for dinner. But when it comes to class struggle, look out! That's the beast best left caged, or rather a Samson that must be left shaved and blind and chained, because if he ever let down his hair and opened his eyes, he might just break those chains and pull down the whole house of exploitation and subjugation. You'll find that when it comes to class issues, the American corporate liberal avoids the subject, just like respectable Southern white families didn't talk about race-mixing agitators. So, in that spirit, I think an innovative way of remembering Dr. King's legacy is to bring out these unmentionable truths from the American memory hole. After all, Dr. King's last struggle was in Memphis, helping city garbage workers struggle for humane working conditions as well as human dignity. The two were, in fact, inseparable. Hence, King's idea of a Poor People's March on Washington, prevented only by his timely assassination, timely for the American power structure. In particular, let's draw attention to the massacre at Elaine, Arkansas of September 30th, 1919. Over 100 sharecroppers in the Mississippi Delta of Arkansas met at Hoop Spur Community Church to organize under Robert L. Hill and the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. Local law enforcement and railroad police put the meeting under secret surveillance and then opened fire on those attending, resulting in return fire by guards at the church house. Word spread that there was a Red Negro uprising in the Delta, and soon hundreds of armed white vigilantes flocked into the area, after which the governor of Arkansas contacted the U.S. War Department. 500 federal troops were dispatched to Phillips County, scouring the countryside for armed black men, disarming any they found, and placing nearly 300 in makeshift stockades. 5 whites and at least 100 blacks were killed in the chaos, described by the New York Times as a plot for a general uprising against the whites. The Times noted a white man had also been arrested and was alleged to have been preaching social equality among the Negroes. Part of the leading headline read, "Trouble traced to socialist agitators." A few days later, a Western Newspaper Union dispatch released a photo of prisoners with the caption of "Captive Negro Insurrectionists." There was no bleeding heart liberalism here in the official Journal of Record, repository of all the news that's fit to print. Not when it came to the struggle of working people attacking the basis of property and the redistribution of capital profit off said property. In the ensuing local trial, 12 of the union organizers from the church were sentenced to death. When the case reached the Arkansas Supreme Court, the sentence was commuted for 6 of them. When the NAACP made its appeal before the federal district court, the latter upheld the state decision that even though enhanced interrogation techniques were used to obtain confessions, this did not amount to a denial of due process. We see how far the USA has come since then, don't we, Tubaneros? But, hedging its bets, the district federal court ruled that there were grounds for appeal, allowing the case to pass on to the Holy of Holies itself, the ruling tabernacle of the 9 elders of the nation. Before the highest court of the land, robed in the majesty of the rule of law, where all theoretically stand equal, 6 of the defendants had charges dismissed, the other 6 being sentenced to 12 years in prison. The matter was referred back to the outgoing governor of Arkansas, who released the imprisoned 6 organizers under indefinite furlough, provided they pled guilty, before the Ku Klux nominated successor governor could take office and throw a monkey wrench into the whole judicial process. The non-exonerated defendants were smuggled out of state in the middle of the night to avoid being lynched. So there you have the rights of working men in theory, and what they have historically been worth in practice if they challenge power, property, and privilege, being coerced into admission of wrongdoing to guarantee even the mocking ghost of justice. Rest assured that it's only been since the year 2000, after 80 years, that there was any resurrection of this case by the respectable media, and only after local activists fought for its commemoration. Other attempts to organize mostly black sharecroppers were met by similar violence. At Cranes Ford, Alabama in 1931, and in other areas of the state, the Sharecroppers Union was met with armed violence and suppression. Since the CSU was affiliated with the Communist Party USA, there can be no doubt that violent suppression of illiterate black sharecroppers was thoroughly justified to save the American way of life that rested its feet on their necks. Back in the Arkansas Delta in the mid-30s, the Southern Tenant Farmers Union met with machine guns and rope in its attempts to reorganize in the Marked Tree community. Even though it was affiliated with the Socialist Party, and its leadership rejected the Communist Party's tactics and ideology, this correct democratic attitude didn't stop high-powered rifle bullets from crashing through the bare boards of its members' homes in the middle of the night. So on this ML King Day, let's remember that there are many struggles for dignity and justice in the U.S. left repressed and bloody and uncommemorated, barely recorded and largely unremembered, because they do not fit into a convenient national narrative of redemption. I thought it was about time. Hello? Who? Who's calling on King Day? Hey, Philip Randolph, head of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. No wonder I didn't recognize you. Wait a minute, you were one of the leaders of the 1963 March on Washington, weren't you? And the original one in 41 that led FDR to ban discrimination in defense industries? Well, hearing from a black labor leader is all good and fine, but as you know, that's not the kind of black leader the American Republic or its black representatives want to remember. They want black children inspired by black corporation lawyers and black doctors, black CEOs, black mass entertainers and sports heroes, not black workers in slavery jobs, advocating social justice for everyday working folks or crap like that. And with a minimum wage of $7.25, you can see the true value of labor in the American way. Better to be an entrepreneur like a pimp daddy or a rap star or a crack dealer. That's where black youth will learn the true spirit of real Americanism.